I will burn this planet down before I spend another minute living among these animals.
Man, what happened to Invincible? I feel like everybody was talking about this show when it came out a few years ago, and now nobody's really talking about it. Well, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Spoiler warning. So, Season 2. It was pretty good. It was a little all over the place. The main reason for that was the show was split up into 2 4-episode chunks. Why did they do this, you ask? Well, nobody knows. I've heard it's because they were using CG, and it caused a bunch of issues and slowed down production, so they stopped using it. And they did to generate hype, apparently. I guess that was one of the reasons they gave. But all it really did was take the wind out of their sails. I mean, in all honesty, it was probably the higher-ups. They just wanted to push something out the door to keep people engaged, and the animators probably didn't even want to do it in the first place. But who really knows? I mean, if you watch all the episodes back-to-back, it doesn't even really matter. It probably feels like a cohesive story. But what I really wanted to talk about was the pacing of the show after Season 1. At least from the perspective of a comic reader. Look, if you never read the comics for Invincible, you aren't missing out on much. The show has done a really good job adapting Kirkman's work to the screen. Or at least Season 1 was pretty good, Season 2 on the other hand was a little rough. I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like there was nowhere near as much time between Omni-Man leaving and the introduction of Oliver in the show. Nolan in the show leaves on episode 8, in the comics he leaves on issue 12. He isn't seen again until issue 25. Where he's there for 1 page. It's a pretty long time before we see Nolan again in the comics. And in the show, it's just 4 episodes later. And I really missed that wait from the comics. And to set the record straight here, I'm not some, oh, they changed the source material, wah, crying noise kind of guy. I actually like what they did to the story in Season 1. If you don't know, Season 1 of the show takes story and character arcs in the first 50 issues. Stuff that's supposed to happen way later in the comics, and they crammed it in Season 1. Like when Titan and Mark team up to take down Machine Head, that's not supposed to happen until after Nolan leaves, as well as other story arcs. And if you never read the comics, you would have never known that any of this stuff is supposed to happen later. I mean, when I read the comics after Season 1 came out, I was like, what the fuck? It wasn't a bad thing at all. In Season 2, however, it feels like they're trying to breeze past some of these story arcs just to get to the meat of the story, the Invincible story. And that might sound dumb, like, hey genius, do you know what the story's called? But Mark and Nolan's story, at least in the comics, feels like a small piece of a much bigger story. Some of the best parts of the comics were story arcs and characters that weren't part of the Grayson family, like Monster Girl and Rudy. How their story ends up is one of the best things in the comics, and I can't wait to see it adapted to the screen. And to give credit where it's due, the show does actually expand on some of the stories that the comics doesn't really talk about, like Bobby Hill. In the comics, Donald just comes out as a robot to stop Wade from freaking out. There was no build-up, no plot thread where he's looking through government files and gets blown up. He just opens up his chest and it's like, shit happens, Wade, you'll be fine. And they are adding new stuff that wasn't in the comics at all, like these scenes in the desert of these girls digging up a pharaoh's tomb. None of this stuff was in the comics, and I can't wait to see where this story goes. But leaving some of these stories by the wayside was a huge misstep in my opinion. Why were the Molar twins not shown after the explosion? Is it because canonically they're supposed to be helping Robot become Rudy? Yeah, that was supposed to happen in Season 2, and I guess because it happened in Season 1, they just didn't know what to do with them. And where's the subplot where Debbie becomes an alcoholic after Nolan leaves? If you want to make Amber black, I don't really care, but not having Debbie drink her sorrows away? I don't know, man. It wasn't groundbreaking stuff or anything, but it just added a layer to her character, and I hope they do something with her in the show. And to be fair, most of these complaints are just nitpicks. The season overall was pretty good. It did exactly what it set out to do. The whole point of this season was Angstrom Levy's story. I knew the first thing they were going to do was open on the alternate dimension where Mark joined his father, but I just didn't think they were going to wrap up the whole story in one season. I kind of thought this story would bleed into Season 3. It feels like they're putting arbitrary deadlines around story arcs in the comics. Like Season 1 was just an opener for the show, where they introduced the characters and then ended when Nolan leaves. Everything in Season 1 was just a lead up to that, Nolan leaving. And Season 2 is just a lead up to Mark saying, I thought you were stronger. I just think it should have ended with Nolan turning around and saying, hi Mark, like he does in the comics. But hey, what do I know? I didn't write the thing. And again, these are just nitpicks. If I'd never read the comics, I wouldn't feel this way. I never would have known that these story elements are being told out of order. The story was still great for the most part. There are only a few things I really have a problem with. And that's one, Levy says Mark joins his father in most universes. 2. The time travel at the end. And 3. Mark's fight with Levy. Now, Mark joining his father in most universes doesn't really fit his character, in my opinion. I know this isn't Marvel, characters have more depth to them, but I don't think our Mark Grayson should ever be an outsider from the norm. Him rebelling against his father should happen in most universes, in my opinion. And 2, time traveling to erase what happened, where Mark was trapped in the future, and Adam, Eve, and a robot, and everybody else had to time travel and have to be careful to reset the time stream, and it muddies the narrative. Time travel is bad and lazy in a lot of stories. It causes more problems than it fixes. These older versions of the characters should have just been older versions of the characters in a different universe where Mark disappeared, not older versions of the characters that dimension hop to send Mark back. This is hinted at in the comics, not so much in the show, but I really wish time travel was never brought up in the story. It always just makes things convoluted and needlessly complicated. Both of these things happen in the comics, by the way. I don't like them in the comics, I don't like them in the show either. Anyway, number 3, Mark's fight with Levy. Or more specifically, his fit of rage where he kills Levy. It's drawn out in the show. It goes on for a whole minute, just him beating the crap out of Levy until he dies. In the comics, it happens in just 2 pages. Levy threatens Mark's mom, and then in just a flash, Mark loses control and kills Levy. His response of, "I thought you were stronger," was a genuine moment of Mark not knowing his own strength. In the show, it just feels like he's reading the line for fan service to hit a comic line's put on screen quota. It's drawn out for just way too long, and the original purpose of the line is just lost in translation. But other than that, the season was great. I'm excited to see where the show goes. Even with these hiccups, the story's too good to fail. Just you guys wait for what's coming. Your socks are gonna fly off. All other superhero media is gonna turn to ash in front of you. Your life will cease having purpose. Hey, quick little note before the video ends. Last time I waffled on the internet about something I care about. I got a pretty good reception, so if people want more of this, then just subscribe, share the video, hit the like button, all those cringe things that YouTubers say during their videos. But thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.